Wireless LAN Weekly, episode 47.
Welcome to the Wireless LAN Weekly podcast,
bringing together the valuable knowledge of WLAN industry experts, news, and the latest technology developments, tools, and best practices.
A place to educate, inform, entertain, and inspire.
Here is your host,
WLAN veteran, consultant, designer, and teacher,
Keith Parsons.
Glad to have you join us today on episode 47 of Wireless LAN Weekly podcast. In today's podcast, we'll be talking with Pat Sewell. He's the past CEO of Cradlepoint, and the topic he'll be talking about is the history of Cradlepoint, that wireless router company who put together some options that many of us have used when we needed a backhaul that wasn't fixed to a wireline. So we'll learn a little bit about Cradlepoint. Our topic for our tutorial is on hidden nodes, and we're going to learn about who is Jared Griffith. We'll sit back, listen, and enjoy the show.
A word for the WLAN Geek Dictionary.
R value. R value is an ITUT specification for determining call quality. R value is an objective measurement, computed directly from measurements of packet loss, jitter, and delay. While the R value is objective, it has a very strong correlation to the subjective mean opinion score method. So R value is a mathematical way of measuring call quality. MOS is a subjective way of measuring the exact same thing.
Wireless LAN Weekly podcast, your source of education, information, entertainment, and inspiration.
Wireless LAN Weekly podcast interview with Pat Sewell. Pat, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Very good. Hey, we're sitting here up above the Boise River. Nice place here. Tell us a bit about where you are today and how you returned back to this location from before.
So we're located in Boise, Idaho, which is the state capital of Idaho. And we're in a really nice brick building set right next to the Boise River. It meanders through the city, right next to Boise State University, right within walking distance to downtown Boise, which is the more urban area of Idaho. And as it turns out, Keith, this is actually the same spot, same office location I started Cradlepoint about 7 years ago. Space came available when I started our new venture called USeam, and we jumped at the opportunity. Had a lot of good memories from this place.
Well, it's good to be able to get back. You got a beautiful view, by the way. Well, let's go back in history 7 years to when you started Cradlepoint. Tell us about how that process happened.
So prior to Cradlepoint, longer background of Pat Sewell, I was one of Hewlett Packard's engineer scientists, and things you can blame me for in the industry are Hewlett Packard laser jets. So I was one of the chief contacts between Hewlett Packard and Adobe Systems, Hewlett Packard and Microsoft. Worked a lot on Adobe PostScript, putting in the laser jets.
I have to thank you for that. That was a great move.
TrueType fonts into LaserJets. So when Windows 3.1 came out, I worked with the team out of Redmond over at Microsoft, and we integrated the font typology between the two products. So a lot of really exciting work there. And near the end of that experience, I was doing embedded Linux. I was one of the first people in Hewlett Packard waving the Linux flag, and through that process, some local people suggested that might be a great jumping off point to start a company, which I did. That company was called Ridge Run. We did embedded Linux for DSP chips, in particular TI's OMAP chipset, which was the leading, chipset for mobile phones in the world. Very popular, still was on some of the original Palm platforms, if you remember that company before it imploded. So we provided that solution during that time frame. That was right during the dot-com era and the dot-com explosion. That company did not make it, and out of that came the genesis for Cradlepoint. Cradlepoint based on the philosophy that 3G, 4G, LTE, wireless data connections are going to be very prevalent. They are today.
Good guess there back then.
Yeah, that was a pretty good guess. And then from there, you need networking equipment. You need the whole solution. You need to have a platform by which that you can reliably, connect to the operator's network. And unlike the free spectrum of Wi-Fi and such, the paid spectrum of the carriers, they have to monetize very tightly to make money. And so it's a lot harder to get equipment to work reliably and not have interference between, the different, frequencies, that are prevalent throughout. So there's a lot of issues in terms of the hardware and as well as the whole software stacks to make them work, because everybody was a little bit different. They still are.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's still quite a bit of difference between carriers.
Oh, extreme. The difference, currently here at USEAM, we're a Verizon partner, and, we know the Verizon team very well. That's a great company. They're very, in the U.S. at least, the dominant player currently in the LTE market. They have great, performance. They have great coverage throughout the U.S., and they're continuing to expand their footprint. So, as part of our, USEAM product line, we have the ability, and we have service plans called UData, where we're able to provide, LTE failover for a $99 price point. Nobody's doing that currently in the industry, and again, it's providing a new look and feel, and a new easy way to actually provide failover connectivity with the analytics and the visualization on how you're using that data and when you're using that, that wireless data. So we're doing some really exciting things here at USEAM.
What kind of hardware platform does that need?
Well, we're hardware independent because, again, very much, the Verizon platform. So we will work with Cradlepoint. We do work with Netgear. We can work with Aruba. When you add a 3G or 4G modem, we can work with, the Meraki, Solutions 3G 4, as well as Aerohive. So we're our solution on the UData platform works with everybody. We have another product called UManage, which actually does more analytical on the Wi-Fi side of the LAN, and currently that one is out with Cradlepoint.
Good. So, let's back up and tell us how you started Cradlepoint. Just the name. I'm sure there's a story that goes along with that too.
Oh, there are quite a few stories of how we started that. Well, it was started in my living room, and
good place to start.
Yeah, it was there, and until it started getting successful, and my wife says, "You must move to an office, this office here." But we. The name actually came from, I called a couple friends and said, looking for a nice name. The original concept of Cradlepoint was a docking cradle for mobile phones and the docking cradle had a Wi-Fi connect in it. So imagine you take your feature phone handset, stick in a cradle, and at that point you had a Wi-Fi hotspot while you charged your phone. So that was how Cradlepoint came up.
Access point with a cradle. Yeah.
Access point with a cradle. That's actually how I got started. There was a couple of really wild and crazy names. I guess for this feature, I guess I'll give you a couple. One name that came out was Porta-Point, but people said that kind of sounded like Porta
something else.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we kind of rejected that name. There was a handful of other rather humorous names that came out of that whole process.
Well, I've personally used Cradlepoint for many customers. It was a great bridge between LTE and Wi-Fi. Continue on with your Cradlepoint story.
So as we picked the name and we started building the company, we always had the concept of a battery-powered portable hotspot. We connected USB modems to it. We were back in the day, it was tethered phones, and the USB modem sticks were just coming out. We went all in, thought USB modems were the way of the future. We built a portable hotspot that was very successful. We worked with Kyocera Wireless. We built the Kyocera Wireless KR2 device. We built our own, which was very similar to what Kyocera wanted it in white plastic. We were in black plastic effectively. And we did very well over the years. To date, as that company has grown, I think the current numbers are getting close to 1 million units shipped. So over a 7-year period, growing nicely, continue to grow nicely. Very proud of that company and what they've accomplished. And had a great time there. And about a year and a half ago, the board of Cradlepoint elected to make a change. Another nice way for saying that the CEO, founder, must move along.
Thank you, and thanks for all the fish.
Yes, pretty much. But it was a great relationship, good bunch of people. And at that point, it gave me the opportunity to sit back, look at the industry, being caught up in the day-to-day, meeting quarterly revenue numbers, to back into the more startup phase where you're able to look at the whole market and look at needs and look at, what potential needs are. And again, that was the genesis of, from Cradlepoint, very much building hardware. Now they're working on more of a software platform over the top, to USEAM, which is a full software play over the top of these type of devices.
And USEAM's not looking to get into their own hardware. Your goal is to stay at that software layer?
Completely. We want to work with hardware partners. If we have to bundle our services and solutions with the hardware, that'd be great. But we work with the manufacturing partners to do so. We don't envision ourselves shipping devices.
So for our audience, who is mostly wireless LAN professionals, obviously people who deal with Wi-Fi every day, what's your elevator spiel on what is USEAM?
Elevator spiel on USEAM is, again, 2 products. UManage, which is the product where we provide Wi-Fi analytics, either wired as well as Wi-Fi analytics, visualizations. We're able to tell through our secure WPA Enterprise Wi-Fi logins. We're able to do presence management. We're able to say what users are on your net. We're able, through the radius integration between the products here, to be able to allow certain capabilities for users, direct them to specific VLANs within the product, do the whole setup. So there's not only a management component of it, but a whole analytics component on the Wi-Fi or the 802.1x side of the router. Our second product, UData, service product on that, is we provide that 3G, 4G, data connection. We're a Verizon VPP partner, which enables us to purchase Verizon data and resell it. And again, that's a $99 product with a $15 gigabyte overage that allows customers to actually get on the network. So not only can you manage your network, you can also understand who's using what data at what time and what it's costing you.
So do most of your customers use the UData as a recovery or a disaster, or as just a normal way to get on
both.
the network?
A big push of them is a lot of it is just pure failover. If you look at a point of sale type application, Black Friday, where significant portions of retail customers, retail stores, have to be online and swiping credit cards. You can't afford 8-hour downtime. That could be catastrophic to your business. So a $99 a year, $99 one-time payment a year, and allow your customers to have that failover, and $15 a gigabyte for when you actually have to use it. That is a great insurance policy.
That's really cheap for failover, just in case. Is it also able to work not in a failover situation, but in we ran out of capacity?
Sure, primary connect. So we have a UData component, which we call UData primary, and we allow you, if you want to, purchase LTE data on a per gigabyte basis. We'll do that at $12 a gigabyte. So if you want to prepay on a monthly basis for data, and that kind of fits in more of the kiosk or the remote location. Let's say you have a pop-up store during that same time period, and you want to run a store for 3 to 4 months. well, do you really want to pay for an entire year, or would you really like to pay for
just that time? Yeah,
just that time. So again, we can, we work with, that solutions that, provide you the means by which you can, provide that data connectivity. Now, the other piece of this as well is the software component on top. And this is dealing with the visualizations on how much data is being used at what time, as well as, signal strength of your LTE connection. Are you in a good signal space? Very much like you see happening in Wi-Fi. Tell me what's going on this AP, tell me what's going on over here. But if you think about it from a, either a failover or a primary, do you have reasonable, LTE signal?
Is it actually going to fail over?
Is it actually going to fail over? Is it actually going to work? Are you actually going to get the performance that you need out of that connection when you need it? And again, we provide that over the top, software solution for customers.
So, cloud-based?
All cloud-based, all hosted up on Amazon. Your quintessential, cloud solution. That's what our team is. Our team here, we're currently at 11 people, still growing. And which is a very sizable team, split between primarily engineering and sales. I mean, that's how startups work.
So what's your sales model, going out through resellers, direct distribution, multiple tiers?
Well, we're looking at being cloud. It's direct, in terms of, direct to the customer on that side. We do work with partners. We will go in distribution if that makes sense for them. Again, it's just a matter of working, with the individual partners and making sure that the business model works for everybody.
And no inventory.
We let other people handle the inventory component.
Great. So what would your, since you've been in the industry a while, not meaning to give up either of our two ages, we've been around a while. What advice would you give for a new wireless LAN engineer, somebody who wants to get into the Wi-Fi industry?
What I tell people, especially as they come out of school and are beginning their career, is learn your trade. The first thing that you need to have an engineer do is really get into the trenches, spend time, if you're a software engineer, coding, spend time, really becoming a master of your skill set, master of your trade, master of the knowledge base that you want to be in. So if it's in the wireless, you really need to understand, soup to nuts, the entire technology set, in and around, your area. Second thing is, like anything, it takes time. You have to put the hours in. I've seen the people that succeed are the people that spend, the long hours and the long days learning their trade, understanding what's going on, and preparing themselves to a point where you can actually, if you want to start a company or join an early stage company, that's, you put you in a position that you can contribute and get things done. I mean, because in a smaller environment in particular, it's about getting things done. And so a lot of it is perseverance, hard work, learn, you got to always keep learning. You can't stop. And there's a couple new things. I had an engineer recently call me and ask me, how to promote themselves better. I think there's ways of doing that more now. I think you got to be more active.
You mean like social media, Twitter, blogging?
Blogging, GitHub. I mean, you got to get out there. You got to do things. Go start an open source project. Go contribute to an open source project. Comment on an open source project. Get out there, make a difference, get things done. And I think by doing that, then people start recognizing that you have additional value. And a lot of this even comes through in terms of the, and again, don't want to give away our age of people with no hair. But I think that the pedigree is changing from having the pedigree of a fancy university to a pedigree of getting things done and being out there and showing your value, in the industry, and showing your value that you're actually a leader, whether it be in technology or thought leadership or visionary or along that. But it's a little bit more. Just because you have a pedigree doesn't mean as much as what you accomplished and what you can accomplish in the future.
And you're a prime example of that with your background from HP and Linux, embedded systems, hardware manufacturing, and back coming around to software. So
yeah, a little old, but I had to put my plug in for University of Iowa. I was one of the first computer science graduates, out of the University of Iowa, and then later at University of California at Davis. So, been through the academic side of the equation as well.
So in looking to hire engineers now, do you still look for that same college degree?
No, we don't. We look for really smart people that can get things done. Degrees allow you a sense of the training. Here at Boise State University, they have a really, nice program. I've hired more quality people out of Boise State than I can count. Some with degrees, some with not degrees. Most of them are trying to complete the degree. I do think I do think a degree helps people in terms of overall rounding of the individual, but just because they don't have a degree, I still interview them.
Don't hold that against them. So
I definitely don't.
So to recap there, basically what you're saying is be in the arena.
Yeah. Be in there. Get in the game. Get in the game and get things done. Show your value.
Yeah, I think you should have on your wall, get things done here. You said it multiple times. Well, anything else you'd like to share with our audience about your history and where do you think Wi-Fi is going?
The new 802.11ac standard, I think, is a really positive step forward in the industry. Some of the new functionality in making it more uniform and more ubiquitous across this will be vendors because of the standards. I think that's a real extreme positive going forward. I see it continuing to be, the go-to platform. I think the next state of Wi-Fi is beyond the hardware, because we'll always continue to get a little bit faster and a little bit, get that little bit more range that you can get out of everything. That will continue. I think the next challenge is going to be on the software platform over the top, and how do you actually how it actually gets deployed, and how it actually is managed, and how it is actually, what's the control across it. I see a day when, from a software piece, that imagine a standard business quarterly system where the sales guys need the internet the last 2 weeks of a quarter, and then the first 2 weeks of a quarter the accounting team needs the internet because they got to figure out what the sales team did, and you start seeing maybe some QoSing done, more done on a user level basis, and a more over the top type software solutions that will go along with the never ending. We are a little bit faster. We're a little bit better. More
than just that. Well, yeah. One final question. You come from a unique perspective, having dealt with both the LTE side and the Wi-Fi side with Cradlepoint. If you could talk to the FCC,
I have actually, but that's a different story.
Different story. When you talk to the FCC, then, what would your logic be around talking to them about licensed versus unlicensed moving forward? What should their focus be on? Because to date, it's been mostly licensed. That's where the big revenue drops come in.
Correct.
On the other hand, huge amount of economic benefits come around because of the unlicensed.
Yes.
But no revenue goes directly into the tax coffers.
Yeah, I think you're looking at the monetary side. That's a difficult question. I see it from the operator's viewpoint that, you need to have really clean airspace. I mean, some of the things that happens on, unlicensed spectrum is difficult, and in terms of the noise floors and being able to provide, that high speed, connectivity that you really want. And, I think there's value in that. So from when I look at the operator's perspective, having noisy equipment on your spectrum is not good. Chatty equipment on your spectrum is not good, because the oversubscription, so that they can pay for that, billions of dollars of spectrum, is really important. And there's not a lot of it there in general. I mean, if you look at even Boise, Idaho, I think Sprint spectrum here in Boise, Idaho is about 30 megahertz of spectrum for 250,000 people. That's a pretty thin slice when you like to see 8 to 12 megahertz. If me personally, if I'm running wireless data, that's about what I want for me
by yourself. Yeah.
For myself. And so you start looking at that on the oversubscription side to get the user experience. I kind of fall on the operator side. Now, that said, what I use everywhere, Wi-Fi. I'm in this building here with many other tenants, and the noise is. Well, we're probably the major noise contributor. but
I find that it's a normal thing for people in the industry, but yeah.
Yeah. So I'd probably say I'd probably come down more on the side of the on the operator side, because I think long term that's the interconnectivity that I want to have. On the open spectrum, that's a little tougher. That's a little tougher question, because I don't know how you regulate that, or I don't want it regulated. I don't know how you do it. We'd always want more.
Well, everyone always wants more frequency. I was just thinking more of the economic differential. One brings in tax dollars, and a company, an operator, supplies a service to the public at a fee, versus open. Everybody can use it. No tax dollars flow into the coffers, and yet there's a huge economic benefit. How many people use Wi-Fi as their main access layer?
Huge. How many people use FRS Citizens Band Radio as an example? Huge benefit to the country. So yeah, I hear you. I don't know. That's a tough one though.
It's kind of. I just wish we could make more spectrum out of nothing, but
that would be great.
Yeah.
But I think that that's a challenge, and everything that's going on in public safety. If you think about what's going on with Band 14 public safety, I think that's really good. When you think about it from a big picture of do you want all your police and fire throughout our country being able to communicate as we send people in for disaster relief and such. They show up, but we have no communications. And the day that communication is important, you don't. I'd like to see the country move faster on getting more of our, the public safety people up and going. Not
one idea that I've floated past people, and everyone goes, "Yeah, it's a great idea," but I don't think it's happened. Is just a flat out reshuffling of all the frequencies. It was built organically over time, and little teeny slices given to different people for different things. If you restructured it, there'd be more available for everyone to use, organized. But that's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. It's a great idea.
Yeah.
I mean, people in smaller rural parts of our country have small, slices of that spectrum. And as the, larger operators are trying to go out and, meet their charter of talking with people, providing telecommunications out to those folks, pretty tough. It's an interesting problem.
And we're not going to solve it here today.
No, I don't think so.
Well, Pat, thank you for your time. I'm sure you have lots of work to get back to, but love hearing your input and your history with Cradlepoint and where USEAM is going. Where can they find USEAM?
You can find us at www.useem.com. And from there, take a look at our products.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, bye.
Back to Basics with Keith.
Our 802.11 Basics tutorial topic today is on hidden nodes. A hidden node is when you have two clients that can't see each other. Now, the reason we need clients to see each other is the way the 802.11 protocol works. a client will listen to the air, make sure that no one else is talking, and if no one else is talking at the time, they will then transmit. Well, if two clients can't see each other, even though they can see the AP and the AP can send the frames, they can't see each other, they don't know when the other one's talking. And so the client A on the left might talk at the same time as client B on the right. By the way, there's some graphics if you want to go take a look, but we'll be fairly descriptive on this podcast as well. You can see those graphics on the Wireless LAN Professionals website attached to the show notes. Well, normally we don't have a brick wall in between client A and client B. What we have is distance. Client A is on the edge of talking to the AP, and client B is on the opposite edge talking to the AP. And because they can't see each other, client A talks, client B talks at the same time. Their bits get all scrambled. The AP can't tell one from another, so the AP doesn't answer either of them. Client A sends the data, doesn't get an ACK, so what's client A do? Has to resend. What's client B do? Has to resend. And they resend again, they collide again, no ACKs, resend, collide. So a telltale sign you have a hidden node might be that you have a high retry count. Well, if you have a high retry count on a hidden node, that means your throughput's pretty terrible. You're not getting throughput. So to fix it, one way, and this isn't my favorite way, but we're going to talk about it today. One way to fix a hidden node is something called RTS-CTS, request to send, clear to send. Now these are very small, short, 13 byte or so frames sent as control frames. And in this case, client A wants to send, and instead of having a hidden node problem and having retries, it will send out an RTS-CTS. The RTS request says, Mr. AP, I would like to talk for 14 microseconds, please. The AP heard it, but the other client didn't. So the other client could still be talking and causing collisions. But what happens is the AP then transmits out a CTS, a clear to send, basically saying, go ahead, A, talk for 14 microseconds. Well, client B, since it can hear the AP, definitely hears the CTS and treats the CTS as, wait, he said A can talk. I'm not A. I'm going to shut up for 14 microseconds. And so he goes to sleep for the length of time that CTS carried. It carried a duration ID there. And then the data is sent by A. The access point sends back ACK. Both A and B hear the ACK, and they're both back in the game. So RTS-CTS is a way to solve a hidden node problem by making the retries go down, but it has a cost. I now have to send 4 frames instead of 2. Now, they're not big, another data frame like a retry would be. That's even worse. But it does slow down, and it kind of paces your network. Kind of like after an accident during a car race, they bring out the caution flag, and everyone can't pass, and they all slow down. It's safe, but it's not as fast as we could have done it another way. So RTS-CTS is a solution for hidden node. Now for my favorite solution for hidden node. It has nothing to do with RTS-CTS. It has everything to do with your wireless design. Don't design your wireless network where clients can be that far apart. Now, the easy way to fix that is just don't allow low data rates. If you get rid of 1, 2, 5, 11, maybe even 12 and 18, and you only start at 24 is the only supported data rate, then if clients can hear the AP at 24, most likely they'll be able to see at something, at least to trigger their CCA, another client elsewhere, and that will also get rid of hidden node. Thanks for listening to the topic today.
This is the Power Minute with today's podcast special guest.
Wireless LAN Weekly podcast interview with Jared Griffith. Jared, welcome to Wireless LAN Weekly podcast. Just wanted to do a little bit of who is questions with you now. Starting out, first tell us who you are, who you work for, and what do you do there?
I'm Jared Griffith. I work for WhoIs Wireless. I'm a strategic account systems engineer, which means I work on named accounts globally, and I help to integrate our carrier services platform, the Smart Cell gateway, into the customer's network.
Well, you used a couple terms not everyone might know about. So could you explain what is a named account?
The named account is an account that is going to be deploying either a Smart Cell gateway, or they have a very large project like lots of APs going in, for instance, AT&T's City Hot Zone projects.
So what was your first computer?
Commodore 64, and the only thing I did on it was play King's Quest.
No programming?
No programming, nothing. In fact, I wanted to be a cowboy when I grew up, and so the only thing that computer was used for was to rescue the maiden from the castle, and that was it.
That's good. So what about your first computer you actually did real work on?
First computer I ever did real work on, I think, was an IBM ThinkPad back in 1998.
Kind of new to the industry. So how did you get into the industry from being a cowboy to being in the IT group?
My father was an RCDD, and he worked at a university, and he was in charge of the phone systems, the voice and data cabling, and some other stuff up there. So I actually grew up pulling cable and learning how to terminate cable properly. And then I went into the military, and after I got out of the military, I did multiple jobs, but I ended up installing satellites. And part of installing satellites was you had to run a phone wire to the satellite receiver, and most of the people didn't know how to do that. So I started running cable because I could make more money per install, which meant that I would get more installs. So I parlayed that from running phone cables for the satellite company to pulling cable for a telecom vendor, and then ended up becoming an engineer for the telecom vendor for the PBXs, then went into sales, and then went back to engineering.
Like a lot of us, that was kind of a convoluted way to get to where you are now. If you could talk to your younger self, what would you recommend to help in that same process?
I don't think I'd have enough time or air to tell myself not to make all the mistakes I did along the way, but probably the first thing would be is to just do what I did in a lot of ways, and that's just kind of keep your eye on the ball and just try to keep going to the top of the ladder no matter what you're doing. Just don't give up on any of it along the way, and maybe, if anything, just tell myself to jump into newer technology quicker and try to be on the forefront of it instead of learning from other people. Try to be one of the teachers teaching people along the way.
Good idea. So you're certified. You're a CWNE. So the next question is certification. Is it a recommended path?
Most definitely. I mean, you can learn a lot from the people that you're around, but to actually sit down and to start something and finish it with the certification, there's a large amount of pride that goes along with that, but there's also a large amount of knowledge that you gain with it along the way. And by putting the effort into it to follow through all the way and get it, I definitely think it's recommended. It's actually one of the high points of my career to be able to get that and to be among a distinguished group of people.
So that's certification. What about a university degree? You think that's necessary in the wireless LAN industry?
I don't think it's necessary. I say that because I don't have one, but I think there's a lot of soft skills along the way that a university degree could help you with, especially if you were like an English major, or if you did any type of majors that helped you with dealing with the public or designing or writing. Those type of soft skills I think are very valuable, and I think a lot of those soft skills you'll either pick up in the School of Hard Knocks or at a university that you went to.
Very good. Home lab, recommended or not? And if so, what do you have in yours?
Home lab is most definitely recommended. It was actually the key for me in being able to work through a lot of my certifications and actually also grow within my career. And I most definitely think that you should have a home lab. In my home lab, I have a lot of stuff. I have multiple servers that I can run different VM platforms so that I can keep working on my Linux, and also Windows servers. I have some Cisco ASA 5505s. I've got a couple Cisco 3750s. Of course, all of my Ruckus gear. I have some other manufacturer gear in there. A couple routers, some FortiGate stuff. It's definitely key in growing your career. You're able to set up different scenarios. You can set up your own wide area networks and route across it, and that way you can always check what you're going to go do in the field before you actually get in the field, and you know it works.
Great. Wireless LANs versus route switch. What was your path? Some people come up through route switch, some go the other direction. How did you get into wireless LANs?
Wireless LANs, I worked for another manufacturer a few years ago, and of course it was all wireless LANs. And after I left that manufacturer, I went to work for myself, and I was with myself for a few years. And during that time, not only did we work on wireless LANs, but you start to get more incorporated with the route switch, especially when you're installing into people's networks and you have to understand the packet flow and the call flows and everything else, so that your integration is done correctly. So I started out with WLAN and have moved into route switch, and still working on my route switch quite a bit more, so that I get better at it all the time.
Is route switch knowledge, do you think, recommended or required for a wireless LAN professional?
I actually think it's required, because even though we deal with the .11 frames at some time, it's converted to the .3, and you got to understand how it gets back to the controller, how it gets to the gateway, all of the other parameters that go along with it. And if you don't understand that, then you're just a one-armed paper hanger, and you can only fill in half the equation. You can never get the answer completely.
So what do you think about social media and your profession? Helpful?
Oh, it's extremely helpful. I think we're actually very fortunate in the wireless LAN community. We actually have a great community of WLAN professionals out there that are actually willing to help assist, teach, share knowledge with you. You get a few trolls every now and then that exist out there that just spew off stuff that's incorrect most of the time, or has no meaning to the actual community. But I think it's definitely a must. Get an account, get involved. You'll be surprised how much you can actually learn from what's put out there and you'll find out really quick who the people are that know what they're talking about, and you'll be able to grow from it.
So do you have a blog? And if so, do you think everyone should have one?
I kind of have a blog. I at least have the name. I've put up a couple blogs in the past. That's not my strong suit. I think blogging is important for people that have stuff to share, or people that are coming up. Without certain people's blogs, I wouldn't be as far as where I am today. So I think blogs are really good. I'm just not a strong blogger myself.
Mac or PC?
Mac, 100%. Once you use a Mac, you'll never go back to PC.
That was quick. Didn't even have to hesitate on that one.
No.
So what's the next big thing in technology that we should be looking for?
The next big thing I'm looking for is when the second wave of AC comes out and we're dealing with MU-MIMO. I'm curious if third-party sniffers are going to exist at that point, and I want to see the technology that comes out from the different companies out there, and what they have to solve that problem, especially if you're dealing with any type of directional antenna arrays.
Your thoughts on licensed versus unlicensed RF spectrum?
They both have a place. I'm very glad that we have unlicensed, so I have a job. I think licensed backhaul is good, I do like the fact that LTE and the carriers have licensed networks, because it costs them a lot of money and they actually have to offload on non-licensed networks, so it gives me a job.
Always nice having a job, yes. Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from Idaho.
The whole state?
Nah, just a little tiny city called Rigby, Idaho. It's actually the birthplace of television.
Because?
Philo T. Farnsworth was a high school teacher out there and invented it in the town I grew up in.
There's a nice little piece there. Anything else special about you? What are your hobbies, family, something that's unique that you could share?
I have a lot of kids. I have 5 kids. I'm going on 18 years of marriage. I like to do a lot of stuff. I love to hunt. I love to fish. I love technology. I like to learn a lot. I'm actually a pretty boring guy. I like my music and my few hobbies, and I'm not a super social person. I don't hit the social scene like a lot of people do, but I don't know. I just like I like the way I live my life.
So if you didn't have to earn any money, what would you do?
If I didn't have to earn money, I would probably do everything, but limited to two things. I would be a professional hunter. I would like that very much, to be able to travel the world and guide an outfit for people. And the second thing I'd do is I would try to start some type of wireless LAN university for soldiers, especially ones that deal with like PTSD and stuff like that, and help give people a skill set that I love very much, and help them get into the industry and get jobs. I'd like to start a foundation and do that.
Sounds like a great idea. So when did you first think, oh, I've made it in this wireless LAN industry?
Probably 2 years ago. I'd been running my own company, and I'd been working on smaller deals along the way, and I started getting phone calls from people asking me to come sell them equipment and to come work on their networks, because I'd been referred. And having customers refer you to other customers is probably one of the biggest forms of appreciation. And I won a very large RFP, and in 1 month I did almost $1 million worth of business between multiple accounts. And it kind of made me feel like I got there. Not only were we able to win the accounts, but we were able to do all the designs, the installation, the validation surveys, and everything on schedule, and actually ahead of schedule, on budget. And to this day, I still have all those customers as great friends, and they're happy with the work that we've done for them over the years.
Sounds like a great success. So the final question, if you were meeting someone else who's just starting to come into the wireless LAN industry, what would you recommend for them to do?
I'd actually recommend a couple different things. Number one, you got to pick up the CWNA book. Of all the CWNP books out there, I think the CWNA is the linchpin to a lot of it, because it has such a broad focus of a lot of the things that the CWNP has to cover all in one book. And it's also the ante to be able to play in the WLAN professionals game. I would also advise them to find a mentor, someone that they get along good with. It helped me when I came into this industry. I was able to get a mentor, someone that would actually spend the time and teach me properly. And probably the last thing is to actually learn what the acronyms are and talk with the proper vocabulary. When you talk to WLAN professionals, we say things a very specific way, and you can always tell people that don't do this for a living by the way they speak. And it would be to understand the vernacular that you're using, but also read that CWNA book, start down that certification path, and make sure and get a mentor, someone that's willing to help you and teach you correctly. And as soon as you get your certifications and you make it in the industry, make sure that after that you find someone that you can help mentor and pass it along.
Great. Well, thank you for your time today, Jared. We're grateful that you're in the industry and out there on social media helping other people out. Thanks for your time.
Well, thanks for having me, Keith, and thank you very much for the podcasts.
Wireless LAN Weekly Podcast, your source of education, information, entertainment, and inspiration.
Thanks for listening to episode 47 of this podcast. We're glad you're with us. We had a great interview with Pat Sewell, talked about Cradlepoint. We learned a little bit about hidden nodes, and we found out who is Jared Griffith. Glad that you were able to join us. Feel free to go to iTunes, leave messages there, or give us lots of stars, whatever you like. Pass this podcast on to your friends. We'd like to grow our community of other like-minded wireless LAN professionals. Thank you, and we'll have another episode for you again next week.
Thank you for listening to the Wireless LAN Weekly Podcast.
Head to WLANpros.com for this episode's show notes and the latest industry news.
Connect today, WLANpros.com.
A place to